Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be listening to a book. Well, we're going to be listening together. It's called The 12 Kingdoms. Hopefully I pronounce this right. By Fuyumi Ono. I have watched the anime. I've watched it like 6 or 7, maybe even 8 times now. I have finally gotten bored of it after watching it so many times. But every now and again I just want to rewatch it again, even though I know deep down that I wouldn't be able to read the full thing. So we're gonna listen through it. I think I might keep quiet for most of it. Let's see where we get to. Okay, let's see if we could go to the other page while it reads it on here. Hopefully we can. And I'll try to scroll down. If not, we'll just have to see it on here. Because of the background noise and all that, I might put the volume as loud as I can, and it'll be up to you guys to reduce it. Wrong volume. Of course, it might get too loud for me. I did this earlier. I should have saved it. Thing about the anime is it takes from bits and bobs from like the book every here and again, so I can't just read the story after it. And I'm really excited to see more of the world. It took me a while to find a version I can read. Hopefully this is the first book, at least. The first volume is fine, but it might be hard finding the other books even though I want to read them. Probably have to buy them, which I don't mind, but I don't got no money. Yeah, guess I'll come back when this is done. Okay, so I was waiting like ages for something to load and nothing was happening. So I just redid all the things that I had did earlier when I used it, and it worked. So yeah, the 12 Kingdoms. Let's see if I could open another slide when I use this. Okay.
Prologue. Her mother dabbed at her eyes.
Wait, no.
The 12 Kingdoms.
Okay, it seems like that is not possible. Okay, I've got an idea. Okay. No. Yeah, this is so annoying. You can't go on to the next page. Okay. I would do it. Huh? Is Are you kidding me? Yeah, okay, this is getting annoying now. Maybe I should have just used the other text to speech. Okay, it's on this page now. Let's do the split screen. Which one should I do? Should I do the voice at the bottom? No, I'll do it at the top. Okay. Don't tell me. Oh, they did it again. Okay, looks like we're gonna have to read from here. Sorry that this is taking so long. This is new, wanted to try it out, but looks like there's not too much pros against like for this voice app yet. Okay, I did the voice setting, the pitch and the speed. Tell me if this is alright.
The 12 Kingdoms. 1,000 Leagues of Wind. The Sky at Dawn. By Few.
Okay, something needs to change. Speed, might do it slower. Pitch.
The 12 Kingdoms. 1,000 Leagues of Wind. The Sky at Dawn.
Okay, nope.
The 12 Kingdoms. 1,000 Leagues of Wind.
Maybe I'll put the
12
pitch lower.
Kingdoms. 1,000 Leagues of Wind. The Sky at Dawn. By Few My Ono. Translated by Eugene Woodbury. Oceanofpdf.com.
Okay, this is alright.
Prologue. Her mother dabbed at her eyes. Take care, she said. Her father and 2 older brothers remained steadfastly silent. Her younger sister and brother wouldn't come out of the house. Standing at the door, Sazu could hear her grandmother comforting them. What's all this carrying on? Said the man next to her.
Okay, wait, sorry. I know I'm interrupting, but I just want to try something. This will be a lot of trial and error. Okay. Now let's put this at the bottom. File. And then we'll see it at the top, hopefully. Hopefully. No. Can't this be a little bit higher? No. Okay, let's see. High. I just put high. Okay, I realize I can't. Yep, not too many points for this one. I'll try and find a better app next time. Okay, one more time. I spent an unnecessary amount of time doing this. I actually had high hopes. I'm not sure if I'm blowing things out of proportion, but yeah, I did. Let's just get on with it, shall we?
The 12 Kingdoms.
Yeah, set the
1,000
pitch
Leagues of
again.
Wind.
Okay, where was I? Was a bit slower, pitch a bit lower.
The 12 Kingdoms. 1,000 Leagues of Wind. The sky at
Okay, no, a bit slower, pitch lower.
the 12 kingdoms. 1,000 leagues of wind.
Maybe a bit slower, pitch lower.
The 12 kingdoms. 1,000 leagues of wind.
Okay, a bit faster, definitely.
The 12 kingdoms. 1,000 leagues. The 12 kingdoms. 1,000 leagues of wind.
Pitch.
The 12 kingdoms. 1,000 leagues of wind. The sky at dawn. The 12 kingdoms. 1,000 leagues of wind. The sky at dawn.
Okay, that's fine, I guess.
The 12 kingdoms. 1,000 leagues of wind. The sky at dawn. By Fuyu My Ono. Translated by Eugene Woodbury. oceanofpdf.com. Prologue. Her mother dabbed at her eyes. Take care, she said. Her father and 2 older brothers remained steadfastly silent. Her younger sister and brother wouldn't come out of the house.
Sorry, just doing the volume.
Prologue. Her mother. Prologue. Her mother dabbed. Prologue.
I guess it doesn't matter.
Her mother dabbed at her eyes. Take care, she said. Her father and 2 older brothers remained steadfastly silent. Her younger sister and brother wouldn't come out of the house. Standing at the door, Sazu could hear her grandmother comforting them. What's all this carrying on? Said the man next to her. His was the only cheerful voice. Aoi Oyagai Soma is a wealthy man. He'll dress you in fine clothes, teach you how to behave in civil society. When your apprenticeship is complete, you may well become the kind of proper young lady who can go wherever she pleases without the slightest reservation. He laughed loudly. Turning her head to glance up at him, Sazu's eyes took in the broken down shack before them. The posts leaned and the thatched roof sagged. The dirt floor was divided into a mere 2 rooms, and everything inside leaned or sagged as well. This was an impoverished life. They were tenant farmers who farmed rice, with most of the yearly yield going to pay the rent. On top of that, the previous year's harvest had proved meager, and when summer came again, ears did not appear on the stalks. As it was impossible to pay the rent, Sazu was indentured as a servant. Not her 17-year-old brother, or her 11-year-old sister, or any of her other 9 siblings. It was Sazu. 14 years old according to the traditional lunar calendar, but only 12 if you counted the years from her birth. Well, let's get going. At the man's urging, Sazu bowed. She said no farewells. If she tried, she wouldn't be able to hold back the tears. She steeled her gaze and refused to blink. She looked at her home and memorized the faces she saw there. Take care, her mother said again, and wiped her face with her sleeve. With that, Sazu turned around. Her weeping mother, her stubbornly morose brothers, she understood now that none of them would be stepping forward to hold her back. Sazu trudged silently after the man as they passed through the outskirts of the village. It was near noon, and they had already reached the limits of the world that she knew. The trail cut up the slopes from the foot of the mountain. Sazu had never set foot beyond the remote mountain pass. You're a good kid. None of this weeping and wailing. That's what I like to see. The man's cheerful attitude never flagged. He walked with long strides, saying whatever came to his mind. Tokyo is a great city. You've probably Never seen Gaslight, huh? The estate you're going to, you'll be able to ride on a streetcar as well. Do you even know what a horse-drawn trolley is? Suzu ignored him. To keep herself from looking back over her shoulder, she focused on the man's shadow, and let his pace drag her along. When they drew apart, she would catch up in a flurry of tiny steps and then tread with satisfaction on the shape of the man's head. Repeating this over and over, they crossed the mountain pass. Starting down the other side, the shadow of the man's head disappeared. He had stopped to look up at the sky. Clouds raced across the sky from behind them. The shadow Suzu had been walking on grew faint. Looks like rain. They glanced back at where they had come from. A shadow climbed the luxuriant, tree-covered slopes from the village. The shadow of the clouds stuck to their heels, almost as if the rain were pursuing. A warm breeze began to blow. Drops of rain drummed on the road. Well, this is unfortunate, the man said, and dashed to a giant camphor tree growing along the side of the road. Suzu hugged her furoshiki wrapped bundle to her chest and followed after him. The big drops of rain thudded against her cheeks and shoulders. Almost as soon as she had reached the cover of the branches, the squall turned into a driving downpour. Suzu scrunched up her neck and ran toward the base of the tree. The twisting trunk jutting out of the ground provided some cover as well. Probably because of the roots being worn smooth by any number of travelers stopping here to catch their breath, she lost her footing. Oh, don't trip, she thought, and at the same time was sent sprawling. She pitched forward and with her next step, caught her toes on another root. She started to fall. Her feet slipped out from under her. Suzu skittered up to the end of a precipice in a little dance. Hey, watch out. Halfway through the warning, the man's voice turned into a shout. Where? The trunk of the huge camphor tree split apart was an embankment steep enough to be called a cliff. Suzu teetered there on the edge. She dropped everything and reached out for the man's hands, a nearby branch, a clump of bushes, anything, but could not grab hold. She was just about to tumble in when she was struck by a torrent of rain. It roared in her ears like standing underneath a waterfall. Suzu's memory was intact up until the moment she thought she was going to fall. Then her head spun. She was thrown by the flood of water. She came to herself again. She seemed to be half submerged in a river. But what river? It was so deep she couldn't feel the bottom. The water washing into her mouth was salty. The dock water swallowed her up. She lost consciousness. When she next opened her eyes, she was resting on a gently swaying bed. A handful of men were staring down at her. Suzu aroused herself with a start, blinked. The concerned looks on the faces of the men softened. They said something she didn't understand. She sat up and took in her surroundings. Her mouth dropped open in amazement. She was on a platform of old boards that barely jutted above the surface of the water. Raising her eyes, she saw that the black water went on forever, meeting the sky at the distant horizon in a straight line. It was the first time in her life that she had seen such a wide expanse of sea. She searched for the big camphor tree she had fallen under. Behind her was a cliff so high, she had to crane her neck to take it all in. The cliff was deeply rotted. Here and there white threads of water streamed down the face. The wide platform of boards had been built out from the foot of the cliff. Piers lined the outer edge of the deck. 3 small boats were docked there. Her only thought was that somehow she had been washed down the river and had ended up in the ocean. She'd heard that if you sailed all the way down a river, it would get bigger and eventually take you to the ocean. The ocean. The water was black as night. She placed her hands on the edge of the platform and stared down into the water. It was nothing like the lakes or river she knew. The water was amazingly clear, but she could not see the bottom. It continued on and on until it was swallowed up in a faraway blackness, where twinkling lights swam together in swarms. Somebody called to her, gently jostled her shoulders. Suzu finally tore her gaze away from the ocean. The men looked at her with distressed expressions on their faces. One of them said something to her that she didn't understand. Suzu replied with a blank look. What? What are you saying? The men glanced at each other in noisy consternation. They all spoke at once, words flying back and forth, but Suzu didn't comprehend a thing. Hey, where am I? I've got to get back. What's the best way to get back to my village from here? The road to Tokyo would do as well, I guess. Do any of you know where Oyagai-sama lives? This set off another flurry of chatter amongst the men. Confused expressions clouded their countenances. The men huddled together in a conference. Suzu sat down on the deck and took a closer look around. The cliffs rose straight up as if the edge of the land had been torn off. The inner face of the cliff was hollowed out. There was a waterfall deep within the mountains near where she lived, but the height of these cliffs far and away exceeded the slope of that waterfall. The cliffs stretched out to the right and left of her, almost seeming to enclose the floating platform. If a section of the decking were removed, there would be no beach or base of the cliffs to be seen, only this huge, floating, raft-like deck jutting out from beneath the cliffs. Boats were tied up where the raft met the water. In the other direction, where the raft touched the cliffs, was a line of small houses. That makes sense, Suzu thought to herself. There's no beach, so they built a beach. But how would anyone climb that cliff? When she tilted her head back and looked more closely, there were stone steps and ladders running up the tall cliff face. That must be how they got up and down. Climbing a ladder like that would make my head spin, Suzu muttered to herself. The men glanced back at her. Pointing, they drew her attention to the top of the cliffs. Then they escorted her across the platform to the stone steps, carved into the face of the precipice. It was the beginning of her gauntlet. She climbed the face of the cliff. Whenever she wanted to stop and sit down, somebody gave her a push from behind or somebody ahead of her pulled her up. Glancing back over her shoulder and quelling the dizziness brought on by the towering heights, she finally struggled to the top. I'd hate to have to actually live here, Suzu said, plopping herself down on the ground. The men laughed and clapped her on the back and shoulders. She didn't understand anything they said, but she thought maybe they were praising her for a good job done. I'd much rather work in the fields. There had been nets spread out and drying on the decking, so she could Imagine that they had returned from fishing. Every time they brought in a catch, having to haul themselves up and down these cliffs, it must be a horrible amount of hard work. Working in the fields wasn't easy, but at least it was a quick jaunt out to the paddies across the causeways. Along the top of the cliffs ran a stone wall much higher than she was tall. She was motioned toward a door off to the side, so she dragged her weary body along behind the other men, and kept on going. Inside the wall was a tiny village made up of a line of small shanties that looked like row houses. She was brought to one of the shanties where she was handed over to the care of an old woman. The old woman stripped off Suzu's waterlogged clothing and pointed her towards a futon spread out on a raised platform on the dirt floor. Suzu obediently crawled under the futon. With Suzu's clothing in hand, the old woman left the hut. Suzu watched her leave and then closed her eyes. She was exhausted. I wonder if I'm going to make it to Tokyo, she thought as she fell asleep. I'd better get to Aoyagai-sama's house as soon as possible. After all, I was sold to him. There was no other place for her to go to, and no home for her to return to. Of course, Suzu had no way of knowing that there was no such place as Tokyo in this world. The ocean she had nearly drowned in was the Kyokai, or the Sea of Nothingness. The place where she had finally arrived was the Eastern Kingdom of Ka. Many years passed. OceanOfPDF.com. Chapter 2.
Okay, I think I'm gonna leave it there. That was the prologue of the First Kingdom, hopefully. The first book. I am crossing my fingers. Thank you for tuning into this. Please come back next time. Might do part 2. Hopefully with a better voice reader, if there is one. Goodbye.